Here is a video of me making this delicious vegan pot roast made of jackfruit. I hope you enjoy. Please excuse my voice, I'm a little sick. First, I'm going to show you guys all of the ingredients I use: jackfruit, oven bag, carrots, onion, chickpea flour, 2 potatoes, my rice made out of vegetables, and first and foremost, I started off cooking the jackfruit. It is canned with brine, so you want to make sure you dump off the brine first and either soak your jackfruit overnight or for a couple of hours, but definitely make sure that you rinse it under clean water to get the brine removed from your jackfruit. And I do a couple of rinses, but while I rinse the jackfruit, I like to crush up the jackfruit as well as I'm doing it. And this is the method that I use for whatever recipe that I'm using, whether or not it's for like a chicken sub or loaded mac and cheese. I always crush up the jackfruit. But for this specific recipe, since it's pot roast and people like the thick hearty pieces of pot roast, you really don't have to crush up the jackfruit as much and make it very stringy like pieces of shredded chicken. You just want to crush it up a little bit. But definitely make sure that you crush it up just enough that it'll cook all the way through and soak up the juices. I'm just going to do a few more rinses. I hope you guys won't be mad at me for not adding any background music to the parts that I'm fast forwarding through, which will be this section and a couple of sections where I'm chopping. I apologize for that. I just didn't want to get copywritten for any music that I use like I did in the past. That's all. I love this filter that we got for our sink because look at that. It gets everything. So next I'm going to peel my potatoes and also rinse them because I did rinse them beforehand, but I just always rinse them afterwards to rinse off the little bit of dirt that may still be on them after peeling it. And here would also be another part where I would insert some lovely transitional music, but we have none, so bear with me. So I rinse the potatoes, and next I will cut the potatoes into a size of my liking, which for this specific recipe I tried to cut them in about like 1-inch squares, but you can cut them to any size that you want. I kind of like my potatoes to be big. I'm just going to fast forward me chopping up these pieces of potatoes into cubes with no music again. You can cut the potatoes as small or as large as you want, depending on how you like it. This is how I like it. And we're just going to dump the potatoes for now in with the jackfruit and set it to the side. Next, I'm going to chop up an entire red onion. I personally like red onions better, but you can use a yellow onion or a white onion or a sweet onion. You can use a bell pepper, red, orange, yellow, whatever you like. I like onions because I feel like they give more flavor. You can use a shallot, whatever your preference. I'm just going to chop these onions up pretty small. So if you're wondering why I'm taking my time to do this, it's because at the time I did not have a food chopper. I do now, so I will use that for further recipes and videos, but I was just trying to chop the onions as small as I could or wanted to chop them. I wasn't really looking for perfection. And here's when I preheat the oven to 360, I'm sorry, 355. This is my baking sheet, and I'm going to pull out my oven bag now. And using the oven bag is pretty simple. You just unfold it, open it up. Try not to poke a hole in it while you open it, all the simple things. This pack came with multiple bags, so I'm just going to stick those back in there. And it also came with this handy dandy sheet if you want to use an oven bag for other things. So now I will put 2 teaspoons of flour, specifically chickpea flour. You can use any type of flour to put in your oven bag. And you're just going to use the flour and shake it around until the bag is completely covered. And you do this to ensure that the bag has a coating and that it will not bust open from the heat once you are inserting it in the oven for a long period of time. So as you can see, I'm just dumping in the potatoes, the jackfruit, the onions that I cut up, the carrots, which I put in whole, and then I just mixed everything around together. And I will add my seasonings next. I normally add fresh celery, but I didn't have any, so celery seeds, black pepper, a generous amount, some sage, just a little bit, mustard, ground mustard, just a little bit of ground mustard, orange pepper. I try not to go crazy on that because it has sodium in it. Thyme, have to put some herbs in there. As you can see, I'm showing you my measuring cup of how I'll basically make my gravy beforehand and stir it up to pour in the mixture so it'll all cook together. I added vinegar, but honestly you can omit this ingredient because it's not needed at all. I think I added about a cup of flour, maybe a cup and a half, and about 2 teaspoons of minced ginger, about 3 teaspoons of liquid smoke, but you could add more or less of any of these ingredients that I'm naming. This is some no beef bouillon, which is why I didn't go too crazy on the orange pepper because this has a lot of salt in it, or it can be salty. I use the same amount of vegetable bouillon. I'm measuring the water and also using it to get the excess bouillon cubes off, but I'll end up stirring everything together anyway. This is about 2 cups of water. And I just went in with a longer spoon with a longer handle so I can make sure that everything is mixed together. And then you just dump the gravy mixture into the roast. And as you can see, everything was mixed pretty well except for that teeny little bit that was stuck to the bottom. Make sure that you don't make a mess like I did. For this next section, I will basically show you guys how to tie the oven bag. But I just have to say, I make the gravy mixture mostly because pot roast originally is made with meat, correct? And the meat that you use is most likely some type of beef. But if anybody knows, beef makes its own juice. Therefore, you don't really have to add much to a regular pot roast. But in this case, I like to add water and extra things so it already cooks in its own juice and it'll cook a little bit faster once it has that stuff in there. But basically, I just cleaned up that little bit that I spilled in the pan, stuck the pot roast in the oven for about an hour. Don't forget to add your 1-inch holes in the bag. Wash dishes, and then I prepare my rice. This specific rice only takes about 15 minutes to cook. Take the pot roast out after it's finished. And now I'm going to plate everything up. So I added about 2 spoonfuls of rice to each bowl. And once I opened this bag, it was very, very hot. So I had to go back in and get some scissors and fully cut it open so I could get in there and scoop out the delicious pot roast. As you can see, the bag is a little charred, but that's okay because the food inside is not charred. The only thing I will say is that I may definitely add more water if I were to make this a second time, because this is my second time making it and I'm not making it the same exact way each time, but the consistency is there for a pot roast. I would just add a teeny bit more water. You guys can adjust this recipe as much as you like to your tastes. Add seasonings, take away any ingredients as you want. This is just my take on it. And as you can see, I had plenty left over for another meal for a full day. Like, this will last you a very, very long time. We had leftovers for at least another meal or two, depending on how much we decided to eat, but there was a lot left. And not to mention, the cleanup is super easy. There's nothing left. If you decide to use this recipe, please comment below and tell me how it turned out. Like, share, subscribe, and come back later.